Hello and welcome to our 25th session, and we are going to start this session with using the new input system in Unity. We have already built the game, we have added the player, and we have also added Rigidbody to it, and we now want this player to jump when we press the space. But we are not going to use the old input system, but we are going to use the new input system. Now basically what happens is, in our regular input system, we add an if statement in update, and every frame the program has to check which all keys are present, and this affects the performance of your game. So Unity has built a separate input system, and using this input system we are now going to continue building our game. Now launch Unity Hub, come into project, and you can start directly with this jumping_force project which we were working on from the previous session. Now if you doesn't have this project, don't worry, you can start with a new project and say I am going to call this as Jumping Force 2, and in eUnity project with Universal 3D SRP template selected, I will click on create project. Now as the project gets created, you can come into the YouTube video page or in the e-learning page. If you come into the description, click more, I have provided you a Patreon link. Click on the Patreon link. Now coming to the Junior Programmer Series Patreon page, scroll down. We have provided you with a Unity package. You have this 25 jump game dots input jump start package. Click on this, wait for this file to get downloaded. Once Unity launches, you can come on the right side in the layout and choose the Satvik layout, or you can go to load layout from file and download the layout files shared on the Patreon page. Right now I will select Satvik, and in inspector you have this URP empty template. I will click on this remove readme asset, and in the confirmation page click proceed. Then in the project page, come into asset, right click and choose the option import custom package. If you come into your downloads folder, you have this 25 jump game dot input start package file. So just double click, and in this import Unity package dialog box, see that all is selected and click on the import button. Now wait for this project and all the files to get imported. Now once imported, you can come here into scenes, and you have the jumping game scene here. Double click to open it. Now in the project panel, if I come into the script, in our previous session we were working on this player control script. I will just double click to open this pop-up. You can click on yes, I trust the authors, and later in our previous session we had added this if statement and we had added this player RB add force. Instead of using this if statement, after the update, after this closing flower bracket, I will press enter twice, and I am going to create public a new function void, and I am going to now call this as OnJump, and in open close bracket I will then press enter, add open close flower bracket, and now inside this flower bracket I am now going to select this line, cut it and paste it into this function. So now whatever action has to perform when spacebar is pressed is added in our own custom method called OnJump. Now I will come into void update and I will remove this if statement. Then I will go to file and save this. Coming back to Unity, allow the script to get compiled, and now in the project panel, if you right click and choose create, you have one option here called as input actions. Now click on input action, and I am now going to call this as player control actions, and I will press enter. With this player control action selected, I will come into the inspector, and you have edit asset, or even if you double click on this, if you click on edit asset, it is going to open input action editor. I will come into the action map and I will click on the plus button, and I am now going to name this as player and press enter. The action that we are going to create will be mapped to player, and then in the second column you have actions, and I will click on plus here, and I am going to create a new action, and I am going to call this action as jump. I will come above and I will select this new action and I will delete it. Now for this action, I will come into set action type, and in this drop down I am going to choose it button value. Coming into jump now, I am now going to click on the right side on this plus button, and I am going to add a binding. One binding was already present. So I will select it and delete it, and I will come into this binding, and now on the right hand side this has changed to binding property, and here in the path I am going to use keyboard. In keyboard I am going to select the key. You have one option as listen. So instead of searching for your key, I will press listen and press space bar. You got this space keyboard added as the path. In the player control action, come here and save the asset. Now I will close this player control action window. In the hierarchy, select player, and in the inspector scroll down. Come to add component, and here type player, and you select player input. So I am adding this player input component to my player. Then as you scroll down, you have the action here. You have to drag your player control action and attach it here. Then in the default map, choose player, and if you scroll down, you have behavior here set to send messages. Click on this and choose invoke unity events, and when you enable invoke unity events, you will see a new option here as events. If I open this, right now I am not seeing the player here. In that case, you select some other object once, come to file and save your scene, and then come back to player. You deselect player and again you select it. Now if I come into player input, you have events, and if I open it, now you can see the player is visible. It may take some time because the unity events are dynamically invoked. You click on player here, and in this you have jump. In jump, click here plus, and now I will drag my player object here, and in function, if I click, if I come into my script player control, I had created one OnJump function. So I am going to select it. I will now come into file, save it. If I execute the game, now see if I press space, see he is jumping. But only problem is he is jumping too much. I will stop the playback, and to control this jump and also the gravity, let us create some variable. So I will double click player control, come into the script. Instead of adding this value 10 directly, I will come to the top, and in line number 6, after declaring this rigid body, I will press enter, and I will add 2 forward slashes, and I am going to create a variable to hold jump force. Public float jump force, and I am going to set its value to 10f and end it with semicolon. In the next line, another variable public float, and I am going to call this as gravityModifier, and I will set it to some value like 1.5f and end it with semicolon. This gravity modifier is modified only when the game starts. So I will come into void start, and I will press enter. And here I am going to call the function physics, and in that I will call gravity, and I am going to now multiply this gravity, add star for multiplication, equals, then I will call my variable gravity modifier, and I will end it with semicolon. This jump force will set the value to 1 instead of 10. Then I will come down, and in this OnJump function, instead of using this number, I am going to replace it with jump force. Now I will go to file, save it, come back to Unity, allow the script to compile. If you select player, and if you now come here into the player control script, you can change the jump force and gravity here. Say for example, I will keep gravity modifier value to 0. Now go to file, save it, and now play the game. We will just press F and come into the view of my player here. So I will just in scene, if I press space, see now the player keeps on going to the top. There is no gravity at all. There is 0 gravity, and he keeps on traveling to top. Now if I stop the playback, I will come back to player, and I will set the gravity value here to 1. 1 means actual value of gravity, and I will save it. And if I now play the game and check it, see now if I click, if I press space, jump is very minimal. I will stop the playback, and in jumpForce, instead of 1, I will set it to 4. Now if I come to file and save it, and now if I execute the game and check it, now if I press space, see, stop the playback, I will make this gravity 1.5. I will go to file, save it, and now if I execute the game and check it, he is jumping correctly. One issue we have here is, when I am jumping, if I keep on pressing my space bar like this, see, he jumps away into the space. If I multiple times, if I click the space bar, see, he will jump very high. This should not happen. For every space bar press, he should jump only once, and only after he comes back, the next jump has to be triggered. I will now stop the playback. How can we achieve this task? I will come into the scene view. I will select player, come into scene view, press F, press Alt left mouse and turn around. After he jumps and comes back, the trigger that we have is collision. The player is going to collude with the ground. So now if you select player, you have box collider added to the player. Then if I select the ground also is added with box collider. I will come into the script, player control, double click to open it. Whenever I press spacebar, OnJump is executed and he is jumping. I am now going to come to the top here, and after line number 10, I will press enter, 2 forward slashes, and create variable to test ground collision, and I will press enter, and this is again a public, but this time the type of variable is bool. Bool means it has only 2 values, true or false. I will give the name isOnGround. Initially this condition will be true, and I will end it with semicolon. When I come into OnJump, I want this OnJump event to happen only when this is true. Here in OnJump, I will come into the open flower bracket, press enter, and now I will add if, and the condition I am going to test is OnGround. Then I will press enter and add open close flower bracket, and I will open the flower bracket. And now I am going to add this line, cut it and put it inside this if block. Now once he jumps, set this isOnGround value equal to false, and I will end it with semicolon. Now once he lands on the ground again, isOnGround should become true. And how are we going to do it? We are going to call another method here called as OnCollisionEnter. After this OnJump, I will press enter twice, and I will call public void, and this time I will call the method OnCollisionEnter. For this, the parameter we are going to give is collision, and the name of the collision is here. When he comes and lands on the ground, and when the collision happens, inside this OnCollisionEnter, I will press enter, and I am going to call this isOnGround, and I am going to set its value to true and end it with semicolon. Now if I save this, and now if I come here and play it and test it, every time I press the space bar, he jumps only once, jumping very less. Stop the playback, scroll down, and I will set the jump value to 8. I will save it. Now I will again play it and check it. Okay, he is jumping like this. But the problem is, whenever he is jumping, you can see sometimes he jumps and falls like this. See, he is falling down like this. So I will stop the playback, and for that, if you come into Rigidbody, you have an option here called as constraint. He has to jump only along the y-axis. So in freeze position, X and Z, I am going to freeze it both in position and in rotation. Come here and set the jump value to 10. I will save it, and now if I execute and check it, he is now jumping without any tilt, and 10 jump value is fine. So now I will stop the playback. With this, we are going to conclude this session, and in our next session, we are going to work on the obstacles, adding hurdles.